Time after time, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people routinely make when they're trying to push the needle forward in their training and their fitness results is inadequate recovery. Because honestly, the training side of things is relatively simple and straightforward. It's not easy, but you're just lifting the heavy weight, you're running the extra mile, you're trying to push your body to a higher level. But when your recovery is suppressed, your ability to go that extra mile is greatly handicapped no matter how hard you work or how much you try to manipulate the variables in your program. So you could look at enhancing your recovery like taking the brakes off while riding your bicycle. You put in the same amount of effort, but you go so much further and so much faster. And the biggest reason why so many people have inadequate recovery is because their training methods are so out of alignment with their goals that they're impacting so much more stress than is entirely necessary for them to create the stimulus they need to achieve those goals. Back in the day, the big premise in fitness was that exercise works because you subject your body to stress. And then through recovery from that stress, your body then makes all the changes it needs, builds muscle, gets stronger and faster and so on, especially through supercompensation. But now we're wising up to the fact that it is entirely possible, in fact it happens all the time, where people can stress out their physiological system to the max. And yes, there is a lot more protein synthesis and all of that stuff going on in recovery, but there's no guarantee whatsoever there's going to be any progress made, because unless the ability to train the body at a higher level is there, there's no need for the body to change and adapt beyond its base level abilities. The thing that makes exercise work, it's not stress and recovery, it's stimulus and adaptation. The stimulus is the actual instructions going into your body telling you how it needs to perform at a higher level, and then your body adapts to that stimulus. So you can have tons of stress, but no additional stimulus whatsoever. And that's why the first step is to not seek stress in your workouts, because your goal with your training is not to beat yourself up, but rather to feed new instructions into your body by telling it to perform at a higher level. The more stress you have, the harder it is to recover, the more your body is tired and stiff and sore and you're mentally burned out and emotionally just not motivated, the harder it's going to be to create that stimulus to get what you actually want. Which leads me into the second point, which is when you understand what that stimulus is, then your training can be much more targeted and direct into exactly what you need to do in order to train your body adequately. You're not just piling on gobs of volume and junk volume and needless exercises and workouts that are kind of just randomly programmed. You have much more clarity because you have a clearly defined objective in your training. So when you know what that objective is, it could be, I'm just trying to do a couple more repetitions, get more range of motion, improve my scapular control, whatever it is. If you have that objective in your workouts, you'll do the amount of work necessary to achieve that objective, but not more than that. You're not doing the unnecessary junk volume and the stuff that just adds more stress without further creating that stimulus. And then finally, the third mistake that I see a lot of people making when it comes to getting the recovery they need is they are too hyper-focused on accessory recovery methods. I'm talking about the massage, the foam rolling, the ice baths, the cryotherapy, all of these recovery methods that are getting much more popular in our fitness culture. They're not necessarily a bad thing, they can be good, but they're very trivial, almost tiny, insignificant methods compared to the big two reasons why recovery really happens. By far, the most influential variable in your recovery for both mind, body, and even emotional recovery is sleep. If your sleep sucks, your recovery is gonna suck. Regardless of all the other recovery methods out there, it's going to be compromised. So make sure you've got your sleep habits dialed in, getting a good 7 to 8 hours if you can, and really prioritizing that above all other recovery methods. And the second most influential recovery influence that people often get wrong is diet. And the reason why this is often mistaken is because so much of our dietary advice in our fitness culture is based on deprivation and restriction. Understandably so, because a lot of folks are turning to improving their diet for the sake of weight loss. They're trying to shrink their body down, and a lot of advice out there is intermittent fasting and don't eat these carbs and don't eat these foods and basically restrict, deprive. But those strategies only work if you have an excessive diet. If you no longer have an excessive diet, then restriction is not going to help your recovery whatsoever. In fact, it's going to hurt it. A truly healthy diet is not based on what you don't eat or how restrictive your diet is. It's how well you're satisfying the 4 fundamental appetites. This includes hunger, nutritional support, metabolic and energy production, and of course, even just palatability, enjoyment, and even emotional support that we get from food. In other words, a healthy diet should not be contributing to the stress upon your mind, body, and lifestyle. It should be removing stress from those aspects of your life. So if your diet is stressing you out and it's causing hunger and cravings and anxiety or guilt over food, recognize you have an inadequate and poor diet, especially for when it comes to recovery. So get plenty of sleep, get a really good, satisfying diet, and make sure that your training is focused on doing only enough work to achieve your fundamentals training objectives, which I cover in this video here, and I've got another one here for your watching entertainment as well. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and all that, and best of luck in your recoveries this week. Be fit and live free.